Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So it's been a while. There's been a lot of videos on YouTube around 9th Age, mostly revolving around the annual balance update and the update of all the different books with some different rules for the various armies that we have, which is quite exciting. I personally didn't have time to get fully involved with all of this, so I chose to not engage too much. But I think that the other people that were involved in this did quite a good job at pushing out the videos. So I want to applaud them for that. So my video at the end of the year, it's going to be a bit of a look back on the past year to see what I liked, what I didn't like about the game, to give some constructive feedback, as they sometimes say. So I released like half a year ago, I released a video about 3000 points maybe being the actual sweet spot of the game in my view. And now last week, as this video is released, a tournament was going on in the Netherlands where they actually used the 3000 point format, and I thought I had a look at the list, and I thought that it was quite a nice collection of different lists that were present at the tournament. So I just wanted to share this, just show you what you can do at 3000 points and just discuss a little bit the lists. So it's a tournament that has been fought out by now. I don't know if I can find who eventually won the tournament. Yes, I can. End of round 3. So we had the Dwarven player who won, then we had the Ogre, and then we had the Demon Legions. So just I won a total of 8,600 points. That is quite a lot, to be honest. But just to keep in the back of our heads as we go through the list. So we start off with the ogre. I think it's the only ogre that were there. So it was also the... Oh no, it is 2 of them. So I have to see which one this one was. This was not the winning one. This one was a lower scoring one. But so this one has a gun, it has a shaman, it has a wizard adept. So spending 800 points in total on your characters is not too bad. Could be even more at this point scale, but I think it's quite a fair investment. It's also ogre, so the characters are generally a bit more expensive. But what do you get on the table? Well, you get a nice big combat block of bruisers, you get a nice support block of mercenary vets, you get some supporting pieces in the scraplings that provide cheap scoring, and then you have some extra pieces to play around with. I think it could be a list that could be a bit further optimized. Maybe ogres suffer a bit from the fact that 2 characters already put in close to 800 points. So then your combat units are going to be a little bit on the small side. I mean, 4 mercenary vets is quite small. But that's also the charm of 3000 points, right? That you cannot fit in everything that you want. So you could fit in also like 4 big blocks of bruisers, and then you're at 2400 points, which is also a fair way to play the game. But these are the choices that you have to make at 3000 points, which is why I would really advocate for the format at 3000 points. And then we'll go to Highborn Elves. This is a type of list that you can play with Highborn Elves. So we have a High Prince with the Spear of with the Sliver of the Blazing Dawn. Master of Conrad Tower, so this is a guy that does everything in the army basically, where he's a wizard and he's also a combat character, which is also why he clocks in at 700 points. BSB to make the army even more reliable, and you clock in at about 1000 points. In characters, you can go up to 40%, as we all know, for most armies, so there's still some room to grow there even. Then you have some core, then you have some reaver chariots to keep your enemy away. You're still able to field the occasional gigantic model like a Frost Phoenix, and I think a Frost Phoenix is actually quite good in this format. So this looks like quite a decent attempt at a gun line. However, Highborn Elf gun lines, I don't know if they're quite as effective as the other gun lines. But it must be quite fun to play. It also looks like just an army in my view, rather than some of the wacky builds at 4.5k that you can get. Vampire Covenant, you still have room to bring a Vampire Count and a Vampire Coach. These are Strigoi guys. I like here that the army is basically just your core Strigoi unit, your special Strigoi unit, your flying special guys, your Vakulak, and that's it. With a general and a Coach, you have the magic that you need to run the list. This reminds me quite a lot of like early days Warhammer armies, where you just have your core infantry basically. You have to. The direwolves could have been another ghoul unit, or one of them could have been. Then you have your very cool special guys who are the ghasts and also the vampire spawns. Um, I think this is a really cool list, or at least fluff-wise, it is a really cool list. I don't know how well it did. We can have a quick look. I don't. I really have no idea, to be honest. Vampire counts, here we are at 11th place out of the 15. So apparently it didn't do too well. However, I could imagine that it still can wreak some havoc. Because you have a decent magic phase with 3 spells and a bound spell with your general. So that could be just fine, right? You don't have to go extreme on the magic all the time. But you could if you wanted to. You have to sacrifice them. Dwarven Notes, the winning list. So this looks a bit like an MSU list, which I generally like for Dwarven Notes. I can imagine that this is quite a brutal list in general, with all these small units where you don't really have to sacrifice a lot of points every time you get into an engagement, with the durability of dwarves in general. And also at 3000 points, you'll less likely face these very big combat units that you cannot whittle down over time. Organ gun, flame cannon really helps. Engineer with the organ gun helps even more. I think this is a cool list. You even have the Forge Wardens. And as you can see, you can still field plenty of stuff in total at this format. I mean, we are speaking about 4, 5, 6, like 70 dwarves in different units. And then still some supporting stuff like a Grudgebuster, steam copters. I think the variety in the lists that you can already see exemplifies my point here. So what you can also see at 4.5k are these list archetypes. So we do have the archetype of the ogre, where you have the shooting with just some combat blocks. We have the archetype of the Highborn elf gun line with far charging pieces to keep the enemy away, and a big block of citizen space. The Strigoi list is a list you can run at 4.5. And also the MSU dwarves. These are not weird lists in that sense. So they work a bit in the same way. And people did not know that I would be making a video about this beforehand. So they didn't come up necessarily with these lists because I was going to talk about them. Then we have goblins, orcs and goblins. Well, goblins, I think. Yeah, kind of the same stuff that you see at 4.5k, I think. There's maybe the giants are missing, but I don't really mind too much. Still, you're able to just fit in your Goblin King on a Gargantula. I think this is quite beautiful. And also at these point levels, the real scale of the goblins comes through, where you are fielding like 100 something infantry models, which is more than what other units, what other armies tend to field. Whilst if you play at 4.5k, you really run into trouble with stuff like goblins, where the enemy also has 100 troops, because you just have the points for it. Empire, so this is quite a balanced list, I would say. I don't know if I would run it in this way, but then again, 9 electoral cavalry with a 9 commander at 3000 points. It will still do quite a lot, especially if you have a support unit that can countercharge with there. I think in this list actually the Imperial Guard might be superfluous, because you already have the parent unit electoral cavalry, parent unit heavy infantry. So I would personally rather see 2 units, just support units heavy infantry, Maybe an arcane engine. There's a wizard on a Pegasus, which is a master on alchemy. That's a different choice you can take, but the arcane engine nowadays is just really, really good with its 8-inch buff aura. You have some light shooting, you have your volley gun. Yeah, I don't really see why you would need to scale the game to 1.5 times the size in order to get the same result on the table, basically. Warriors of the Dark Gods, same difference. So we have some warriors, we have some chosen knights, Veldrogs. On 4.5k, these units would just be bigger, basically. And that is all what you would be doing. Maybe you include an Exalted Herald to get some more magic in there, but that would honestly be everything that you would do. Ogre Khans, this is quite a different list from the previous list. So one issue that I personally encountered with 3000 points is that the unit caps become a bit weird, in the sense that you can field a unit of 11 tribesmen. And this is not even the most overpowered or most strong unit that you can field in the game. Specifically recently with the addition of the Zealots banner in Warriors of the Dark Gods, where you can get 2 support attacks also for your warriors if you're in the 3rd rank of a horde. This is going to make a big difference, I feel, for warriors. But we will see what the future brings. Anyway, if I'm going to play warriors, I'm going to be excited about these big units of warriors. But what I was going to talk about is the fact that now at 3000 points, if you field a big unit, there's less chances of your opponent to be able to deal with it. So that might be a bit of a concern. But then again, the meta will also adapt to that. Maybe people will be fielding more flame cannons or other tools to deal with big units, because, well, if you can get a bigger unit, then you can just push it around and then kill everything that comes in your path, basically, until you don't. But yeah, this list, it's a different archetype of the ogres. So we have the big unit of tribesmen, we have once again the veterans, we have some additional Tusker cavalry, we have a frost mammoth. So this list basically forgoes all the chaff that the other list had for some more combat pieces. And I think it's yeah, it's quite cool in that sense. I would personally think that maybe the Bombardier list from before would do it a bit better, or at least it's a bit more balanced than this one. But apparently, according to the results, with this ogre list coming in 2nd place, it did quite well. Then we have the demons, so they're number 3 place. Yeah, I think this is just fine, right, as a list. Do you need more on the table than this? Do you really need a 2nd greater demon, for example? I don't think so. So sure, there's a lot of support stuff in this list. So you could sacrifice, for example, the Hope Harvester and the Eidolons and the Veil Serpents together to get a big combat unit in special. Then you have to sacrifice some stuff. But still, all of the pieces are just playable in my opinion. And also magic-wise, so far we haven't seen a list, I believe, yet that completely disregarded magic without taking it. Oh, okay, the Dwarven holds, but well, does that really count? Otherwise, everybody has been taking everything still, like shooting, magic, combat. So I don't think there's a problem there at all, even. And then we have another Dwarven list, basically 5 combat units on the small side of 20 models. Yeah, 5 just kitted out Dwarven units. It's okay, maybe this one shouldn't count. So yeah, 4 units that are sure on the smallest size, but you still have 2 Dragon Seekers, which is quite scary for the enemy. The Vengeance Seeker, I think it's also a solid list. There's just nothing wrong with these lists in general. I could continue with the rest, but I think the general idea is anyway already there. So in my view, the game doesn't really change in terms of tactics, whether you're playing 4.5k or 3k. And the general thing is that 4.5k takes too long. It just takes too long. So I've had games, plenty of games, where you're spending like 1 hour for the first turn of your opponent, and then, well, I generally tend to play a bit faster than that. But then already, if I take half an hour myself, then you're already 1.5 hours in. If you're at a tournament, whether you have just one day to play the tournament, then you're gonna look at 2.5 hour rounds probably. You have 1 hour left to finish the rest of the game off, and 1 hour for the first turn is, it sounds like a lot, but I think this is a problem that you can mitigate with lists like these, which are still flavorful, which are still flexible in what you can field. I mean, this Empire of Sunstall list, if you compare the three Empire of Sunstall lists that are there, they're totally different, I would say at least. So, sure, you have the 10 cavalry, you have the 24 Imperial Guard in this one as well. I think this is definitely an upgrade from the other list. But yeah, the other list are the packages. This one has a Wizard Adept. There's a Prelate General. You have an Inquisitor. This is totally a different list from the one that we saw before this. This one. I think it's quite different. And then we have still this beauty. I really like this list. You have your general on a dragon, which is balls to the wall with Empire, and the rest of the list just follows suit with a big unit of cavalry. So once again, this could be a problem at small point scales because 14 electoral cavalry is quite tough. And then 2 units of 4 Knights of the Sun Griffin. I think this is quite cool. Yeah, so in my view, it doesn't really matter tactics wise whether you're playing 3.5k or 3k or 4.5k, and I think 3k gives you plenty of time to do all kinds of other stuff that you don't have time for anymore at 4.5k. So let me know what you think. Yeah, do you agree with me or do you not agree? Let me know, and please get the word out to get more tournaments at 3k.